We don't have Sumner. We can talk about a few things anyway.
You know, like
We
I
want to
said, guys
welcome
have-
all of the Alpine School Board members here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
I just wanted to say I appreciate the calm way everything went on Monday. I know that part of the district had 1 inch and part of the district had 15 inches. So it's not easy to do. You know, I don't know if everybody's aware, but the Alpine School District is rated B+ in the state of Utah. So that's actually the second highest of any district. The highest, I believe, is Park City at A.
B+ for what?
For overall rating.
Oh.
And Alpine School District has a student to teacher ratio of 20 to 1. Park City does. Alpine has 25 to 1. And then Park City, actually, their wages are 20% higher than Alpine. But considering where they're at, that's understandable. But what I want to do is compliment Alpine for what you're able to accomplish. You're the second, you're the largest school district in the state, one of the largest in the nation. And yet you're right up there in rankings, even though you're not able to pay as high a salary or have as low a teacher to people relationship. So I think that speaks to how well Alpine is run. And I think that's really a good thing to compliment. So.
You guys get a lot of pushback from some parents like in Orem who,
And on Monday? I mean, not a whole lot, but there's.
Got no pushback from kids.
Yeah. Yeah, good point, Sarah.
Well, that's not even know.
Yeah, we did get some suggestions.
But you know, a year ago when we didn't call it snow day, we just got creamed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
that
the
was
media.
worse than Monday.
In my area, everyone said, oh, this was definitely the reddest.
Yeah.
So if you remember last
Yeah,
year,
y'all that last time.
the decision was made not to close the school.
Yeah.
And actually, everybody was pretty upset last year that the schools weren't.
Yeah, went with that.
Last time we closed the schools was 1992. So,
And I think you're planning on making it up in May, is that correct?
no.
Sam would address that.
Or is the day?
He was wondering. if we
Sorry,
could make
Sam.
it up.
Our makeup day for snow day.
You want to talk about that?
Well, I'm just curious what day it is.
It would never be.
You have
That's on our agenda too.
Okay.
The date would be April 6th. It's in conjunction with our spring break, and I will be writing a request for an exemption so that we would not have to make it up. There were several, as you probably all saw, there were several districts that closed, and hopefully the state superintendent will take that into consideration and allow us to not have to make that date. But that's not guaranteed, so
I won't say that to anybody.
there you go.
Good. So I just was mentioning, I thought that was well handled. It was a good program. Go ahead.
Kids don't.
Well, and we wanted to say thanks to the city as well, and I'll let Shane do that.
Well, just I think a conversation surfaced here about informing the municipality and the police department and crossing guards, so we worked through that, got that network arranged. And we made a decision, Mike Browning, our director of safety, contacted all the police departments, made them aware, and they were able to get the word out. So we appreciate that brainstorming here, that we were able to act upon and improve our process.
That was good. Well, I've got a bunch of questions for you, but I'd like to turn the time over to you.
Okay. Again, I'll let Shane address this issue of some future planning between the district and the city. So Shane, do you want to take that one?
Thank you, Superintendent. I just want to express appreciation to Brenn, the monthly meetings that we have and his team, just outstanding to work with, a very collaborative group, very communicative with us, and we're able to brainstorm ideas and work through opportunities, and it's a good monthly meeting. I appreciate that, I appreciate your effort to make him and his team available to us. Thank you for that. Cascade, if you've driven by there, it's progressing well. It's going to be a beautiful building. We're excited about that. Are on schedule, even a little bit ahead of schedule. And the principal has been appointed there, and we're eager to get in place and replace all the furniture. So Brenn is going inside as well. We'll look at some budget opportunities for that. The Mountain View easement there, working with the development of the rec center, the construction of the rec center, that's progressing well. We used on that monthly, and then exchange communication as needed. We're aware of that, and our physical facilities fund, so appreciate the positive work there. We are in the middle of, or in the midst of, our 2020 capital planning, 5 to 10-year capital plan. We have another meeting next week with that group, and so we're looking at all of our municipality areas, our growth areas, our aging buildings, and putting together a plan that we will bring to the board, and also bring out to municipalities for feedback and awareness. We talked a little bit about that yesterday with Brenn and his team. So once that settles a little bit and is ready, we'll share that with the group. That involves areas where we have needs for new schools, areas where we have older schools that possibly need to be built, property acquisition, safety security measures, and what we're looking at, and getting ready to present to the board for their awareness on that. We have a focus group tonight. We'll go for about 4 or 5 hours where we contract with Y2 Analytics. They'll bring in 2 groups of 10. We've worked on putting together some feedback questions, and they'll just work with that focus group to kind of surface what are some of the issues and questions that you have on your mind with respect to Alpine School District, with respect to growth and how to accommodate additional students in aging buildings. Once we get that information, that will be presented to the board next week, and from that, we will create a patron-wide, district-wide survey to gather more information from our patrons with respect to how they would like us to handle additional growth, bond projects, etc. That's kind of the capital plan. We will continue, once that plan starts holding still, we'll go back out to all of our school community councils and school patrons, share with them that information. We can share that with the city as well. And then we'll continue to just do a capital information study until August, when the board needs to make a determination whether or not they want to put a bond on the November ballot. So it's really just an information campaign, gather information, getting feedback, giving information back out until the board makes that final determination in August. Yeah, that's right. That's our timeline of what we're looking at.
It's been interesting to watch the Provo School District this last year and a half try to get a bond passed, which was defeated. And so now they're talking about having to maybe move the students from Timpview down to the new Provo High School, because Timpview is fast becoming unsafe. And in which case they would have major busing issues, and they would have overlapping classes. And I think people within the community real quick would say, you know what, this is a good idea. You know, that's an interesting concept. I'm glad we don't have to do it.
We're learning from them. And go forward and we'll put the time together.
I just had a question about the focus groups, how are they chosen?
They are chosen by Y2 Analytics as individuals that live in the district. We try to get representation from different municipalities. Those are individuals who are registered to vote and likely to vote in the 2020 election that are not employed by media or by the district.
Not necessarily parents of children, they
Also, Mayor, just to make you aware, in our cabinet meeting a couple weeks ago, our transportation department came and said, here are the routes that we're considering possibly changing this next year. The process of that is it now goes out to supervisors to share with principals to get feedback. They'll bring it back to the cabinet, we'll review that, we'll share that with the board, make a final determination on what routes we adjust, which ones we do not. And we can share that with you, and it will be shared with patrons as well. We're trying to get that information out to patrons in April so that they're aware for next school year rather than out during the summer or a change in the fall. We got that process a little bit in terms of timing, just to be more communicated with our patrons and make them aware of those changes. There'll be some changes here. For instance, Cascade will no longer be bused. There'll be a non-bus school because their school will be built and they're all within that 1.5 miles. So those are some changes. There'll be a few other adjustments, but I think they will in not significant ways affect it.
But that communication will go back and forth so that we do have everything set up for the crossing guards, et cetera, for the opening of the school year.
So does that mean they'll redo their safe routes to school plans and such as required?
They update those annually.
We have 2 more items. One is discussion on the rec center and just getting an update from you. And so Shane, was there anything else that you wanted to bring up with regard to the rec center other than the update?
I think it would be good for everyone to kind of hear, especially the cabinet and board members, and the status of that. My comment was it's been a great project to communicate with the city.
We have Ryan Clark, who's our internal project manager on both our library project and our Beeson project. Ryan, you might just give the group an update as to how things are proceeding and leave out all the bad weather we've been having.
So we're not delayed, but we are because we had bad weather. So, yeah, weather's been a problem. We're trending right now, looking at a 2-week delay to open the swimming pools. We were targeting the end of April. We're looking at the middle of May. Big D is doing everything in their power to make those scheduled days up. But right now, our biggest challenge has been getting the tilt-up concrete panels poured. Right now, they're formed. The first layer of concrete has been poured in those panels. Insulation on top has been installed, but we're waiting on rebar and good weather to pour the final layer of concrete. Then they have to cure for a number of days, and then they'll tilt them into place. And that's kind of our holdup. The 2 locker rooms are built out as far as masonry. The steel roof deck is in place over those locker rooms. They are supposed to be pouring the concrete floor for the 2nd floor over those locker rooms this week. And we're picking out tile colors right now to get the tile order in. So work on the restrooms is progressing. Work inside of the existing pool is progressing. They've backfilled the trenches all around the swimming pool where we replaced drain lines that were over 40 years had settled and were not working as well as they should be. That roof deck will be poured back into place here in the next couple of weeks. Pool equipment and, well, let me step back. Power transformer has been set, much thanks to the school district and to Shane for helping us to get that trench and conduit installed on the west side of the high school. That work is all done. The power's been installed and the transformer's set for the fitness center. So hopefully we won't have to impact the high school again. In the spring, we're planning to get in and get the landscaping repaired and replaced before the temperatures get too high along the school district on the west side of what we call the new connector road that connects the south parking lot to the north parking lot. And other than that, work continues to progress at a very quick speed. I joke that this is a design build project and not a CMGC project. So we've taken UDOT's model of building bridges on the freeway and highways, and we're building a fitness center at an accelerated pace. And Karl, please add the many things that I missed.
Well, the element of the build that will affect you guys probably the most is the stadium seating at the pool. We are working through that. It will not be available when we open up. Our target to have that done is August. We have been meeting with it's Orem High's swim coach has been probably the most involved person trying to get the designs and what they would like in that. I think we've pretty well settled on a design that doesn't meet all of their requests, but it's something that we are trying to figure out how to pay for. But that should be coming in August. We'll open the pools up, we'll have a temporary wall, they'll cut the wall, build that out, and then we'll open that back up. our target is to have it available for swim season next fall.
So Karl, are those going to be aluminum seats or cement seating?
That'll be cement seats. But their biggest question has been how to elevate it so that the seating is high enough to get here while still meeting ADA and number of seats and moving the diving board to accommodate a lot of things, to keep the path out of the starting blocks. And so there's been a lot of interaction. I think we've settled on a pretty good design.
Good.
Our hope is that southerly wall where the seating will be, that can be cut out and removed before the pool's open, and they would build a false wall on the interior, which would allow Big D to build the spectator seating outward into the south landscape area. So then they would come back in and have minimal disruption, a shutdown of a few days of the pools to get that false wall out and open it back up.
So the wall is going to be taken out in its entirety?
Probably 80% of that wall will.
We're taking out and making the seating as large as the engineers will allow us to do. So there will still be a little bit, but most of it will be gone.
And there'd basically be a large beam along the top. There will not be any columns obscuring views. It'll be a really nice product when it's done.
Is there anything that you need us to help with? Have you identified anything?
Shane's been great to work with. He and the principal there, Mike Erickson, they're going to let us come in a little bit ahead of time and do some demolition on the parking lot, so that as soon as school's out, we can get in and get the asphalt and concrete back in. And so that's our big coordination point moving forward. But we're communicating often, and everything's working really well right now. So we don't really have any needs or requests.
And the timeline of the asphalt, just because when we're looking at either summer activities that are going on or moving into the fall. So what was that timeline that you're going to be doing?
So we're looking at the end of April to start demolition, and then as soon as school's out, essentially we're in there full board. So right through the summer, and hoping to have it done before school starts.
Ryan, weren't we talking about once the work is done, doing the oil coat and then restriping?
Yes, part of that will be grinding the pavement markings off in the north parking lot along Center Street, putting down a tack coat or a seal coat, and then restriping the entire lot to the new format.
Some direction signs for exit, entrance, going around back, that kind of thing?
There will be a new monument sign on Center Street, a sign in front of the building. As far as directional signs, at the moment we don't have any plans for directional signs, but that may come. Method Studio is working on wayfinding and branding for us, and we just have not gotten that far down the road.
I'm thinking you're going to need
Just to note too, about the south parking lot, that has and continues to be our staging area for the project. We recognize it's in rough shape. We will not be able to do anything with that until not this next summer season, but the fall summer season. It would be our intent to rehab that whole area and bring it back to obviously a more, I guess you could say, structurally sound position. So that south parking lot is going to continue to be used for staging operations in the next school year.
So 2021 summer.
Yes.
Remind me how many seats that swim area will accommodate?
We're targeting 250.
And is that typical for a swim meet? I mean, is 250 something that,
250 is what we had in the other building, but only about 100 of them were any good. So these will be 250 that will all be good. So would the swim group like more? Yeah, but we're,
it's better than what they have?
it's the same numbers we had before, but they're going to be better located.
Unobstructed views, is that better? Meaning you
Well,
can see better?
It's going to be lengthwise on the 25 meter. The majority of our meets are 25-yard races, so they'll be lined on that rather than lined on the 50 meter. So they'll be significantly better for the majority of our meets.
The only other thing that I brought in, talking with the team, was how might we work to support your efforts with Hope Squad, and where we have the schools that are participating, and you have joined into that. I haven't really had any kind of sense that we've been able to mesh that together, and so how can we support the city and make sure that the schools are doing things that maybe there's timing wise, you're trying to do something in a city effort, so how can we support you with the Hope Squads that we already have existing in our schools?
So I think we're talking about our Everyday Strong effort.
Are you talking about Hope for Orem or?
Yeah, I was thinking suicide prevention.
Hope
Yeah,
for
I was
Orem
thinking that you were
suicide
talking about.
Everyday Strong.
It's all
Okay,
the
so-
same.
That's what, we just
We'll call it
refer to it as
social and emotional.
Everyday Strong. Stephen, I mean, would you mind just speaking to what Ken and your group are doing in relation to that? Obviously in the field, in the city, but also in the community and with some of our schools.
But before we do that, congratulations to your wife for being recognized at the last board meeting. Yeah, that was fun to see her being told thank you for the effort that she's made over many years. So.
Yeah, thank you. It meant a lot to her. And the way you went about it, how professional it was really, really nice. It was a great evening for her that she'll remember. And we did really well. Yeah, so Kenna Matthews is our community services manager. Kenna, her prior professional was the director of the Habitat for Humanity of Utah County. Worked with Food Bank, Food Care Coalition down in Provo. So a lot of time in kind of this nonprofit world, working with people that are struggling in different ways. So she's partnered up with some schools. I know Sharon Elementary and a handful of others where they'll go out in the evenings and do these Everyday Strong and talk about being safe, connected, and building a safe, connected, and confident generation.
So she's trained in.
Yeah, so she's gone through some training with the United Way, and she's facilitated the discussions both internally with our employees as well as externally. Now, I do know that some of the evenings in the schools where the community is invited the attendance has been, I know there's been times where nobody showed up, and times where a few people show up. So, I think any opportunity to just continue to promote that information. It's very valuable information for parents as we're moving forward. We did an event at Orem High School last year where we had a speaker, and I'm not remembering her name, but she came out. We actually went in on paying for that speaker. Yes, Kristen Kane. So that was very beneficial. We were able to utilize a facility that had seating capacity and share costs on the speaker. So I think we're starting up with some more schools. But we love, obviously, just greater participation and marketing that event and have those series of events.
Does Ken have a relationship with Janice Langley, who's head health, and Kathy Ambrose, who is?
Yes, we do. We work with Janice each year. We did a faith, we call it a faith or hope walk as part of our Summerfest celebration. Yeah, and so we worked with Janice on that. And the other name was?
Kathy Ambrose. She's
Oh,
kind of
we know Kathy. Yeah. So we do work with them, and our hope is, or no, I think Janice said that they weren't going to be doing the walk this year.
I think she's going to make it part of the rain.
Oh, okay.
Just do it.
Oh,
rain will be
That's right.
rather than conflicting with, I think, the breakfast that morning.
It's a cause that we're extremely passionate about. I mean, we talk about this for us and raising children, but we talk about this just from an employer standpoint, of creating an environment where employees feel safe, connected, and confident. So there's huge benefits socially from home to the workplace in these places.
So I love both of these programs. I've been involved with Hope for Orem and I've been involved with United Way. I love both of them. The one thing that I've noticed is, what we're trying to deal with is children that are susceptible to wanting to commit suicide. And to me, the biggest factor in helping to keep them from doing that is actually peer support. And parents are really a big part of it, but what I see helping them the most is peers that are there to help them in times of need. And I think if there's some ways that we can increase our influence that way and help our children to support one another, it goes a long ways.
Well, we just want to be supportive of whatever the city wants to do, and if we can dovetail things and make sure that we're helping with the advertising or whatever.
No, I appreciate that. And I'll chat with Kevin where kind of the next schools are. I think generally she can work with the principal to set it up. But if there's something kind of at a school district level, if you have any additional questions, is there something you want us to
Well,
with?
if you're working on anything of that nature, Rhonda, raise your hand. Rhonda Bromley is over the social and emotional well-being, and she will get it to the right people for whatever the specifics are of your activity or ideas. She'll handle that with her committee and the team that she runs.
And we have, maybe Rhonda can speak to our consortium or whatever we're calling it.
Yeah, we have a suicide coalition that we invited. We've had some people from Orem that have come. The goal is all about my school district, which of course is 14 different communities. And there's so many good things going on in different places to just kind of work together, you know, kind of thing. So I can give you information about that. You can share it with your people as well. We'd love to have you join us or have someone from your group part of that.
That's great. So before I ask a bunch of questions, I don't want to bore you, but I do have a couple of questions. I did want to introduce, we have 2 new council members. So we have Jeff Lambson and we have Terry Peterson, you might know. And anything you 2 want to say?
Thank you for your great work. I'm excited to be able to be a part of this.
So this is my 7th year going to these luncheons, but not in a row. So I look at Rhonda, I look at Rob, and there's some few familiar faces, but anyway, it's great to be back.
Good. So this year is an election year for some statewide offices, which you might be aware of. And education is front and center on discussions, and I've been involved in a bunch of discussions. And I want to bring up some questions that were brought up by some of the candidates for governor as to how the school district would respond. So one of the questions relates to Governor Huntsman. His comment is he's very concerned over education. His comment is that one size does not fit all. He wants choice to be out there. He feels like that students learn at different rates, and he would like to make choice available. Now, if you go back 10 years and remember when he was governor, he pushed forward the voucher program with the legislature. And maybe not everybody was involved, but the voucher program was to give each student a voucher from $500 to $3,000 and let them choose whatever school it was they wanted to go to. UEA opposed it, a lot of residents opposed it. The law passed and then was taken down by a referendum and did not go through. But what I am seeing from Governor Huntsman right now is a rebirth of that idea. So are you aware of that, and what are your thoughts?
Well, the first thing that I would say is the current law that we abide by allows for choice. So I believe that those who would like to go to a certain school, for the most part, they have that opportunity. There are a few of our schools that we declare as closed. In the Orem area, we have Lake Ridge that's been a closed school. And we close schools for various reasons. Sometimes it's due to the fact that the school population just is extra large. An example of that would be Lone Peak High School. And yet, we make exceptions in any of the schools that are closed, on occasion allowing someone to attend even those schools.
So a lot of those students,
choice is already there.
if they left, would decimate the school's ability to have the proper teachers, proper support, etc. So you can allow, but you can't allow everybody to then go out and go to a charter school, and then you're left with nothing.
Oh, people can choose.
Yeah, the choice is there to go to, if I don't want to attend Sharon Elementary and I want to go to Northridge,
No, I know that.
I already have that choice.
And then if they wanted to leave the Alpine School District,
They can do that right now.
but some schools are closed to that.
No, it's not
There's
There's lotteries associated with charters, so.
like a UCAS. or-
Right, so they do have to go through the lottery system, and I don't think that would change regardless if the voucher program exists or not.
Rob, you had a comment?
Yeah, here's the part of the discussion that is never really talked about. It's easy to say, yeah, we want people to choose, but there's costs associated with choice. In an Alpine School District, 92% of our school-age children choose Alpine School District schools. You have homeschool, you have charter school, you have private school. People, for the most part, are choosing our schools. Within our school district, nearly every school, there are a handful that are closed to protect programs and opportunities for kids. But even within that, even in a closed school, we have students that are out of area for a specific reason or a specific course. So to me, I would ask Governor Huntsman, and I've talked with him before about this issue, how do you solve that question where if you already have choice, are the taxpayers willing to pay for even greater choice? And what does that do to the other students who are already choosing their neighborhood school? That seems to me the question that very few politicians ever get asked or are held accountable for.
Okay? Yes.
I just want to point out that our teachers are trained to differentiate. It's called differentiated.
Sure.
But they recognize the different ways that students learn, and they are trained. Maybe I don't know, you can speak better to this, but they have that training. And I think our board member Julie King can also speak about the choices that are available to kids.
Yeah, my kids have done district, charter, homeschool, everything but private schools are not rich. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that's great about Utah County is that there are a plethora of options out there, and what parents are looking for, they will find. 92% of them find in their neighborhood schools.
I think too, when we talk about vouchers, one of the things that concerns me is the last time they were talking about that, they talked about access for, maybe for students who had social, economic need. To go to private schools, but when you look at private schools, vouchers could help some students afford private school. But, like for example, I live pretty close to American Heritage, and it's about $5,000 a year for a high school student. So if you really have an economic need that you can't afford to go to private school, a $3,000 voucher is not going to make that possible for you. And then when you look at also those families then additionally having to provide their own transportation, having to provide the voucher doesn't make it possible. It might make it easier for people who already could afford it, but it's not going to make it possible for a whole subset of students that were not able to access it. That's one of my concerns about vouchers. It pulls resources out of the school that is available to those students and doesn't give them the resources to go to have more choice than they already have.
Okay. Do you have any? Yes. Looks like everybody's got it.
Oh,
Go ahead.
yeah, we do also provide extracurricular opportunities for students that go to charter schools, private schools. If they don't have a team or any kind of an extracurricular group or athletic group, then they are allowed to come and participate in the area that they live at that school. And so we do have a lot of students that are benefiting, which is great. We love to have them, but we don't get the WPU for that student because they're at the, they're at other schools. But we are providing opportunities and they're participating, and so we are partnering in that way as well.
Okay. Sara?
Well, on a philosophical level, if we can move to a philosophical level for a minute, the state constitution requires that the state provide a free public education. And so the question I ask myself is, what is the obligation of the state? What is the correct use of tax dollars? And they're telling us the tax dollars are limited, and that there's a need for some restructuring. And so in an environment where our WPU is already extremely low and our pay scale is extremely low compared to other places in the Midwest and in the West and everywhere, what is the obligation of the state? Is it to provide a Cadillac education for everybody who wants it? where are your tax dollars supposed to go? Where's the best use of those tax
Sure,
dollars?
cost.
And we feel like in Alpine, we give the best bargain for the buck available.
Sure.
We have incredible programs, incredible teachers, wonderful outcomes, high test scores, high graduation rates on a very minimal budget. So whenever I hear something where they're going to siphon tax dollars away from public schools, I kind of worry, is that philosophically where the money should go? And was that the intent of the original writers of the Constitution?
Sure. Yes.
I was just wondering, on open enrollment and recruiting athletes, I mean, how's that separated? The reason I ask that is you've got Timpanogos up here now that's just going independent because they can't field, from what I understand, a team.
Football.
And then you got Orem High that recruits from.
Hold on.
But I think that's getting a bigger problem all the time. And how are you addressing that? I don't know if Timpanogos, isn't there another school or two that's going independent?
Yeah, there were three that were approved at the last Board of Trustees meeting, and then the original one was the parochial school. No, Juan Diego has basically become the football school for the Catholic kids. It's Judge Memorial. Judge Memorial was the first one to request that. And then Timpanogos and two other schools made the request this last time. Peterson was one, and I'm not remembering the other right now. But
Well, I see the day that Timpanogos, they're declining quickly in their athletics. They'll just say, we don't have any. And I don't know if that's.
I would say differently. I would say their football program has struggled. Kim Nelson runs one of the best baseball programs in the state. So to say that they're down, I would say in football, yes, I would agree with you. But there is that tipping point that some schools get to. Orem High has reached that where they do have, as both Timpanogos and Orem are open schools, kids can enroll there, and based on the rules that are established by the Utah High School Activities Association, which is made up of the schools. So when you say them, it's also us. I would say that there are rules that are determined to say don't recruit. And I would say that the recruiting, when you use the term Orem High recruits, I would say I don't think they do. I think that parents talk to other parents and recruit. I don't believe that the Orem High coaching staff or administration is out there and actively recruiting. If they are, then they should be turned in and they should suffer the consequences that exist for violation of the High School Activities Association rules. That's the way that our system works. So I would just say that this is a pilot. We're trying something. I sit on the BOT for the High School Activities Association to allow this independent opportunity right now. It's the midpoint of the time where you do realignments. So for 1 year, these schools can try it out, and then the realignments will happen. And so the timing, I think, is pretty good to test this. You won't likely see schools that are struggling in programs be dropped down. Those schools that are doing really well may be moved up in football. The other sports, it does not happen that way. It's all just based on their enrollment. Rhonda.
Your frustration is a frustration at the schools, and especially, some schools are closed, and so they don't feel like, students have the opportunity to just come there like they do other schools. And it's an ongoing conversation of frustration. Wherever that student has first entry is where they've established their eligibility. So they can do that. So, there's frustration that, when students go to younger leagues in other communities, that's becoming a huge thing. And, you know, like basketball or soccer or football, things like that. So we've tried to internally in our own district, try to come up with some things with our coaches and our athletic directors and things to try to respect that state rule. But that is a frustration. I mean statewide, but certainly in our district too. And with the 3 Orem schools, that's been an ongoing issue and an ongoing conversation. And the bottom line is, good programs recruit students. Like if you want, you know, AF Band, that's a great example that the schools around that get frustrated because kids that are big band kids, they want to go to AF. It's not because anyone's out talking to them saying, here, come here. It's because they want to be part of a successful program. So successful programs do recruit kids.
That's what I mean by it reached a tipping point with the Orem football program. It's a machine now, it kind of generates that interest.
Well, I just see 20 kids playing football at Timpanogos, and there's only one way that can go now, it's down.
So I'm just going to add to what Sam's saying, because I'm smiling, because it goes in cycles.
It does.
And we know the school, a few years ago, they were accused of being, you know, I'm just pointing at Rhonda. Yeah. I mean, it used to be Lone Peak, now it's supposedly Orem, Timpview, East. I sat on the Activities Association, and Timpview, or not Timpview, East, you know, every 3 weeks we'd have a meeting about East. But then it goes in cycles. So I was at a Mountain View Lehigh basketball game the other night. No one is in the stands from Mountain View. Well, I remember when my kids were going through the program, that place rocked and dominated. And the girls' basketball program, which was a legacy for the country, they were accused of recruiting. Dave was accused of that. It's because everybody wanted their kids to go there. And now they're, I don't know how the girls are doing, but the boys are not that good. And it just goes in cycles.
But that happens because the state legislature has allowed for families to choose where they would like to have their kids attend. And so it is an issue. You bring up a good point, Brent. I don't want to say that it's something that's not a concern. But I think that for the most part, what we try and do is we try and abide by the law, which is the open enrollment, unless you have to close schools for certain reasons. And then we try to abide by our rules that we set because we are the High School Activities Association. All of our schools make up that. The executive committee is made up of the assistant principals and principals. And then the BOT, the Board of Trustees, is made up of board members and superintendents and principals that have the final say. And those rules that are set come from those schools at that level. So we have done one thing. We have asked Rob Cuff to be more informative and communicate better with superintendents, which will hopefully trickle into the boards of education as well, so that people will feel like they're getting more information directly from the High School Activities Association.
Thank you.
Sam, one other comment. There's 2 sets of rules. There's you can have your kid go anywhere. Then there's also the activity sets of rules as far as recruiting.
Correct.
And so you can't recruit a kid to go to another school. And if that happens, there is guidelines, and people get censored.
And you bring up a good point, Terry, because we had, most of you will know, in football, Lone Peak was penalized this year because of what they called an ineligible player. It was a kid from Canada that came to play, thought that he had signed all the documents and done everything right, but because of one issue, it came back that no, he's not eligible. Lone Peak self-reported. They said, we found this issue, we need you to know what's going on. We feel like it's a very minor issue, but they still were dinged, and it affected the entire playoff bracketing, to be honest, because Lone Peak ended up playing some teams that were hoping to get further down the tournament bracket, but got bumped because of where they ended up being placed. And it affected, because they use an RPI system now like the colleges do, to index them. And that index was run after the Lone Peak points were taken away, if you will. So those schools that had played Lone Peak got penalized. And one of those schools, for example, was Skyridge. They ended up having a lower seed than they should have had. That's one of our district schools. So, I mean, the RPI is being, it's not being thrown out, but it is definitely being re-looked at and worked on to make improvements. But, you know, we're mainly talking about one sport here, and that's football, because the others all function pretty much under what I would call the traditional rules that we're used to. But Mountain View, what a great thing. Mountain View had a great football season. One of the reasons why, their enrollment numbers are lower, and so they went down in classification because of enrollment. And they ended up going into the football playoffs for the first time in, I don't know how many years. It's been probably 6, 7, maybe 8 years that Mountain View has not been able to compete. So I think that was a great thing for the Orem area to have those opportunities for their kids. This time it was Mountain View that benefited from it.
Well, and I think coming from the Lone Peak area, those rules are pretty strict about switching, and I actually felt like the consequences for that poor kid were pretty catastrophic. I mean, he was here as an exchange student. He went home. He didn't finish the school year. He was so devastated that he caused that issue for the football team. He wasn't a starter. I don't even think he played every game.
7 plays.
Yeah. So he was devastated enough that he went home. And so those rules are pretty strict, whether good or bad. Like, I mean, at the time I felt like that was bad for that poor kid.
I'm sure you've heard all about it. Sunday dinner. You heard
So,
about that.
yeah, so it was, you know, but it's unfortunate. Well, always.
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. I have one last question. Utah had their tech summit last week, put on by Silicon Slopes. There were 20,000 attendees. We had the CEO of Facebook speak, and we also had the CEOs of Pluralsight, Qualtrics, Domo speak as well. And they have an education component to their goals for the next 2 years. I haven't met too many people that are aware of this, but they have a goal that by 2022, every school in the state of Utah will have a class that teaches computer science. My question is, how are we doing in the Alpine School District?
We're moving in that direction. We're not there yet with coding being in every class for every student, but we have made some pretty good progress, and we have appreciated the support that has come from the business community from our tech companies and them wanting to have support and help.
When do you think you'll get there?
I don't have a date. I don't know. John is over all
And would you say we're
elementary and
50%
Ron is
of the way
over all of
there?
secondary.
Yeah.
30%?
In the secondary schools, we're 50% computer science. This is Mark's passion. He can speak a lot to that. But one of the challenges we have that's becoming easier is finding teachers that are willing to come in and teach what they can make out in the workforce with their skills compared to what they can make as teachers. So being able to partner with some of these companies has been a great thing.
Would it be helpful to have somebody come in and do it part-time that might be someone in the tech?
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Rather than, again, when we hire a full-time person and they're so good, and then after a year or two, they realize what they can make out there, and they're gone really quickly. So we've gone to a lot of part-time people, partnering with companies and things. So we're making good progress. Mark?
I think that would be a great thing too, because I think it serves the interests of the cities too, right?
Sure.
Because as we get a more educated,
foundational for everybody.
yeah, if we get a more computer science skills in the students, then it's going to bring in more tech companies, and it just feeds on itself. So I just appreciate the pressure that these companies are putting on the state. And I'm just going to go back to, Rhonda didn't say this, but it's largely a matter of funding, to be honest with you, because those are expensive programs to run. They really are. And so I think it's maybe something that we need to partner with a little bit to make that happen, because it's so important for the kids.
And I think through partnership, we could achieve that.
Yeah.
But like you say, if you're going to hire somebody, you're not going to be able to hold on to.
So to give you an example, one thing we did, when I was supervisor, CTE, remember this, Rhonda? We partnered with Bottega. We took our existing teachers that weren't certified in computer, taught in our tech areas, but worked with them to get their credentials. We paid for that so they could.
They did summer work.
Yeah, they did summer work, they did after hours work to get their certification, but we paid for that. They're already our employees, we know they're gonna stay. This way we can get the certification so they can teach the computer science classes. So partnerships like that are ongoing with industry providers that say, well, we'll train your people to be computer science teachers in your schools.
So if you'd like this done, we need a partnership, public-private partnership.
And it's a little bit different in elementary schools. You know, we have not had typically computer science, although there's been some.
You had some clubs.
Yeah, after school, hour of code. We do have in some elementary schools a computer teacher who is generally either a certified teacher or possibly a parent who's paid hourly that takes kids for a half hour at a time or the classroom with kids and teaches basic keyboarding and not too much on the programming side. But computer science standards for K-6 are brand new in the state, and the state office has put some grant monies together for districts to come up with a way to help infuse the computer science instruction in elementary schools. So we have gotten a little bit of that money. There was some, I can't remember what it's called, like, I don't know, bidders.
Grants.
Grant, where you have a little bit of money just to put the proper grant together. So right now, we have a committee comprised of some elementary principals, Eric Woodhouse, a principal supervisor, and one or two of the CTE directors to help write the grant to help our elementary teachers with computer science. And what it's going to look like at the end, I don't know. That the committee will put that together. But in some cases where you have a computer teacher, that's a little bit easier. But every principal decides what specialty classes they're going to offer at their elementary school. And some are really into the arts, music, PE. Not every school has a dedicated computer teacher. So the work of that committee will be to help, I think, empower teachers, just regular classroom teachers, to do the computer science.
Yeah, don't think of it as a specialist position in the school. It's all teachers incorporating it into their curriculum, just every teacher.
So they'll probably put together some online lesson plans and things to help our teachers.
State training.
Yes, sir.
You know, on a school-by-school basis, some schools are doing a lot with it. For example, Foothill Elementary, their principal had a 2-week coding challenge, and he made a video for every grade level and showed the kids exactly how to do it, and every kid could participate, and it got harder and harder as it was 2 weeks, and there was like one every day, I think. And by the end of the period, you know, end of the second week, it got harder and harder, and by grade level, it got harder and harder. And the kids loved it. They ate it up. I mean, like every kid in the school was doing it. So, you know, if you look school by school, you see some really exciting things happening.
Well, you had a little help at Foothill. First of all, you had a parent supply computers for every student. And second of all, your parent association there are some heavyweights in the tech industry that want to make sure their kids do well. They are a special case, but a wonderful case.
That is true, but the computing contest was done at home.
Yes.
And they did have someone provide
And
some
the
prizes.
initiative was led by the principal, Jeremy Burr.
Jeremy did all the videos and all that.
Because of his passion,
Yeah.
that had a direct impact
Yeah.
on that. And I would say, yes, they definitely benefited, but it's his leadership that made this happen. He himself codes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he himself created all the challenges and all the videos.
He has science videos for the kids too. He's done those in the past.
It's pretty amazing.
That's fun.
That's great. Well, I don't have any more questions. Yes, Terry.
Just one other question. And you mentioned Cascade. So that's a big school. That's a lot bigger than the old Cascade, it looks like to me. So tell me, can you give us the future picture of Orem? I mean, that's a big elementary school on the east side of Orem with not a lot of growth potential. So give us the big picture of Orem.
We haven't changed the boundaries for Cascade, so it's the same as far as the student population that will attend there. They're currently at the Hillcrest site, but it's called Cascade Elementary. And they will just take that experience that they've had this year off-site. Well, it's been being built. We think, by the way, that has been a very positive experience where we haven't had to have construction and students at the same location, and we haven't had to move in a lot of portables to try and accommodate the construction. So the size of the school has to do with the fact that they are a DLI school, so there's a magnet program there, dual language immersion, it's Chinese, and so it does draw kids from different parts of the district, if you want to call it that. The majority are from Orem, but you know, if I work in the area, I may bring my kid over there and drop them off because I want them to have that kind of an experience. And I'll stop at that point and let Shane say whatever he wants to say about it. Shane's over operations for the district.
Yeah, I would say, I think we're 80,000 square foot there, Rob?
80,000. Single story.
An enrollment now of around 700 to 700.
721 October 1st.
Yeah, so just about right for 80,000 square feet. I think it'll be accommodate them, will accommodate some growth if they do grow. You say, what is our plan for Orem? We're in the process of reviewing that. We've met a couple times as a committee to look at all the elementary schools, the secondary schools, enrollment trends, where we see them going. I would say most of our concern in terms of enrollment would be on the west side of Orem. As we look at Aspen, Bonneville, Geneva, Suncrest, Orem Elementary, Windsor Elementary, those are, with the exception of Sharon, those are the schools that we see dipping around below 500 over the next 5 to 7 years. And those are the ones that we're reviewing to say, okay, what would be our ongoing plan to address declining enrollment and aging schools, and how do we go about that? We haven't come to a determination yet. We're just reviewing that, brainstorming ideas. When that Orem plan kind of gets settled, we'll bring it back to the board for their awareness, and then make recommendations and move forward.
We do recognize that Geneva is our oldest school. So when you say what needs to happen, we need to keep looking at our schools strategically, but Geneva is the one that, I'm speaking for me, I'm not speaking for anybody else here, as I see Geneva, that's our oldest school and we ought to address it.
And would you combine it with Suncrest or not?
That's an option, but it hasn't been determined yet.
Terry, another thing I would say, those west, especially the northwest Orem elementaries, it allows us to offer that Vineyard growth as well. We've got a second elementary going into Vineyard, north of 800 north of Vineyard, west of the tracks. They expect another 5,000 units there. There's an elementary site that's been reserved there, but until that gets fully built out, a lot of townhomes and condos there that may generate maybe a third of a student per unit. They follow trends in other municipalities. And so we've been able to accommodate that growth in Vineyards with our northwest Orem schools until we need to build out there or not. We have capacity there. So we're just kind of watching that to see how fast that area will grow out and just continuing to look at those and explore options. Does that answer your question?
All right, any other comments or questions? Yes.
I think we want to congratulate you on your recent build, and I think you're about to realize the full extent of the plan, is that right?
Yes. So I think Utopia's plan and UIA's plan is within a 4-year window, it will be completely rolled out everywhere within the system. Next year, okay, well, I'm more, but system one, I thought it was 4 years to build out.
It's been a long road.
Yes, it's been a very long time.
Terry, I think what we'll do next time after we schedule the meeting, we'll want to come back, and I think it would be good to have an accounting to this group and to say, over the last several years, the last maybe 3 bonds, what has Alpine School District done to try and support the Orem area? I think that's fair, and to be able to say, what have we done to try and like for instance, we rebuilt Orem High in one shot. We have still not completed rebuilds of Lehigh, American Fork, or Pleasant Grove, and they were built at the same time. And so those three communities, we kind of still owe them what we did for Orem in one phase of one bond. And so I just think that for us to come back and say, well, what did we do at Timpanogos? What have we done at Mountain View? What have we done for the elementaries in the area? And then if you have suggestions, we're more than happy to listen to suggestions and see, maybe you have ideas that we haven't thought of. But we feel like working together, we can do good things for the Orem area and try and be strategic and timely and make the right decisions.
Well, I think we appreciate the residents' support of the bonds, and I think we appreciate the school district's support of the new schools. So, very beneficial. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and close. Debbie, you want to make a motion? Yeah, we'll do it time first. When would we?
Well, that's what I've heard. You know, it's like you mentioned, how people was our house
same time, 2 months from now?
used to that all the time.
Yeah.
Well, there was
So around
but you don't want to
the
be
15th, it's a PTA, can state
He's totally
PTA.
innocent. Let the girls decide.
Yeah.
20 seconds.
Is there a time when Cascade will be far enough along?
I don't know.
I can always hear that stuff, but yeah.
When
I'd like to
you're
hold
always,
off until maybe this summer,
Okay.
whatnot, the contractors, and rightfully so, are hesitant to
glad to see.
allow too many people in there with their liability.
Yeah.
That's great.
before things get locked up.
She's doing a good job.
By people, I would know.
Logistically
And
bad.
maybe the summer.
What about either the 22nd
we're out of time.
or
No,
Down in St. George. 29th.
29th?
I think.
29th.
You guys did be at Centennial, but I assume most people have gotten in there right now to see.
Yeah, and those who wanted to
We were
attend
invited
to
to
the
your
ribbon
ribbon cutting,
cutting.
but that was fun.
Yeah.
The only one we were missing at the ribbon cutting was the superintendent of the school.
Yeah.
And I got there 10 minutes late. And today we were a little
Yeah,
late.
good point.
It was
That's a good
another
point.
meeting. So my apologies, but
You're fine.
thank you.
We appreciate it. I wouldn't set the motion.
No, I don't. Everybody jumped on it.
Is there a second?
Terry and Brent, you want a second?
One of you two, give us a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
So you might be good to talk sometime about some of these communities.